This is Alex. I can't take your call right now, so please leave a message after the beep.
Alex, it's Michael! The doppelgangers, they're not just a bit. They're real. They're freaking real. And they're vampires.
Oh, Michael, come out of hiding and fight us like a man.
Fight us like a... Dude, that's how you know those are doppelgangers and not actually me. Because I fight like a woman. I gotta go. Alright, let's do this.
I wanna get physical. Let's get it physical.
And that's the voice of my beautiful wife, Vicky Arora. Welcome to episode 4 of the Hellbound Podcast, entitled Death by Stereo. Why is it called Death by Stereo?
Because Lost Boys is my all-time favourite horror film.
And why is it your favourite?
Because... Okay, my sister exposed me to it. I'm not scared by it. I really like it. It took me a while to realise it actually was a horror, but it's got vampires and of course it's a horror. This genre, I don't quite understand it anyway. So...
What do you understand about horror?
It's nothing. I would never really choose to watch a horror film or movie, depending on where you are. But I'm really massively into like real life crime, now called true crime.
We've just delved straight into talking about Lost Boys, and we will definitely be going back to that a little bit later. Michael is currently killing off the last of the horde of vampires in Santa Carla. Or is it killing a bunch of zombies? I can't remember. Otherwise, he's kind of tied up, so to speak. And yeah, I'm joined by my amazing wife, Vicky. We live together in the city of Chester. Michael's based in Toronto. And yeah, we just kind of wanted to try something different. Michael and I are going to be joining back together, I think next episode or the episode after. This is the first time my wife and I have kind of done anything like this together. We've done plenty of other things together, but this is something fun for us, and Vicky's always been a help with the Hellbound Festival, producing and helping pay for bits and bobs for the festival and the microphones and such like. So yeah, it's amazing to have Vicky here in my life, and yeah, I can't say more about her because she's sitting about 12 inches away from me.
Oh, you can. Keep going. I'm enjoying this.
Literally 12 inches away from me, so just picture that.
Touching knees.
Touching knees, touching you. Isn't that like Neil Diamond or something?
Or Alan Partridge?
Sweet Caroline, something like that. Anyway, I digress. We wanted to do some sort of podcast together in the future, but this is nice to kind of have Vicky here whilst Michael's gallivanting in Santa Carla. Basically,
what we wanted to do is actually have a chat, because we don't see each other very often, even though we live together and obviously spend our life together. We're both working, and we don't have a chance to chill out together.
Yeah, it's crazy at the moment.
This is nice.
This is nice.
Hiya.
We're usually doing this about a space away from each other on the couch, because like Michael alluded to with his couch last week, on episode 3, we've both got terrible couches in our lounge where we watch our movies. Michael's kind of swallows him up like Ghostbusters, and ours is well worn. And where's that couch from, Vic?
So that couch... Okay, to cut a long story short, my granddad, towards the end of his life, so about the 5 years at the end of his life, came to live with us in Cardiff. I'm from Cardiff, so he came to live in my family home, but he had his own little annex, so down the side of the house, so he had his own living room. So my dad and I one day went out to go and find a sofa for him. You know, being the typical Indian people we are, we looked for a good bargain and had an ex-display one, so God knows the number of bums that I've sat on that sofa. So once my granddad passed away, my parents moved up to Chester, and I was like, I'm having that. We need a sofa. The majority of the things in our house are hand-me-downs. We've been very lucky.
The best way to describe the couch is though it's got two Norma Bates kind of shapes in them.
So basically your dent is deeper than my dent.
Yeah, it's got two deep crevices on either side of the couch. Like, you know when you see Norman pick his mother's body up in the original Psycho, and it has that kind of imprint of a body? That's what our couch is like at home.
Dips.
So
Two dips.
two dips. In
Separated by a mountain, because the middle seat is perfect, because nobody ever sits in it, apart from Frida.
Then we've got our little demon dog, Frida, who's currently chewing on some sort of felt toy or something.
Given to us by a friend, even though this friend knows that Frida demolishes all soft toys, she knows that they entertain her and keep her quiet.
Yeah, Frida likes to chew everything. She's a eating machine,
Well,
like Richard Dreyfuss describes the shark in Jaws.
we've actually been quite lucky. She's only, as a very, very young puppy, gnawed on some of the skirting board. But other than that, I feel like I'm jinxing myself. Should I not carry on? Our furniture's been fine.
Our furniture is fine, and ironically we've got a wooden floor and there's no chance of her chewing on that from the wooden floor we had from some nuns.
That's another story.
That's another story for a different type of podcast. So yeah, I wanted to speak to you, Vic, about what you like about horror. Do you really like horror? I know you mentioned briefly that you weren't quite sure what horror was, and how did you get started? Wasn't it your auntie or something that introduced you into kind of horror films?
Kind of. I know that sounds ridiculous now that I hear you say it back, that I didn't know what horror was, but I'm not very au fait with all these individual genres, because I think they amalgamate. I think they cross over quite a lot. I'll come on to that a bit later, but my first memory of a horror film, I don't know if you know it or not, but it's called Wolf.
Oh, with Michelle Pfeiffer and
Jack Nicholson.
Jack the Man, yeah, Nicholson, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's like early 80s maybe, something like that. Maybe mid 80s.
No, I think it's kind of, I'm going to say 92. We're not going to check, we're not going to cut.
92?
I reckon 1992. You know what? Live on the podcast, I'm going to check what year Wolf
Well,
came
you
out.
check while I tell you the story. My aunt, we call her Bua. So, well, we do call her Bua, but basically, I'm Indian, if you didn't know. Born in Cardiff, Indian parents, North Indian. So, my dad's sister, her title as dad's sister is Bua. So that's what we call her. And she's pretty cool, to be fair. And my sister is 5 years older than me. I'm introduced to a lot of things at a younger age. I think you are as well, because of your brother Michael. So we used to go and hang out with my auntie. And I remember watching this film. And I remember things like his face retracting and the wolf coming out. And that was scary. And I had nightmares about that.
And it wasn't the howling; it was definitely Wolf, because the reason I mention that is Rob Picardo, who plays the amazing Doctor character in Star Trek Voyager. He's a werewolf in a great 80s film called The Howling, and there's a sequence in I think it's in a sex club, and he's in a kind of I'm going to say a wanking booth. And he transforms into a werewolf.
It definitely wasn't that. Because I remember, I think he was outside or in the woods, or it was an exterior scene, if you know what I mean. So, no wanking booth in this film.
Right, we'll have to check that. We'll have to check the wanking booth count. We'll make a tally of the wanking booths in these movies. It was 1994.
Or just the number of times you say wanking booth in this podcast.
Yeah, there's probably 3 or 4. We'll make it a drinking game possibly for this podcast. Or for at least this episode. It was 1994 when the film came out.
94?
Yeah, you thought it was 80s?
Yeah.
No, you can get a sense of it. The thing I remember about Wolf is Jack Nicholson running towards the camera, and his eyes and his teeth, because he's got, his famous eyebrows. He's got the Nicholson smile, and I think his contacts he's wearing, and there's like a break of light and moonlight, and he's running towards
94.
the camera. Yeah, it's got a great poster, or at least like There's a pose of Michelle Pfeiffer on the poster that's like really kind of iconic. So
that can't have been my first memory then.
you may have watched possibly Lost Boys after Wolf.
So Lost Boys is
Say
awesome,
Lost Boys is mid-80s, I think.
but I wasn't really scared of that. I tell you what I was scared of is It. Myself, my sister, my 2 cousins were in a living room, had a sleepover and watched It.
The
2-parter.
Tim Curry version, the TV movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great one. The scary part was part 1. I think
Part
part
1.
2 when they're
A
adults.
bit older, yeah.
Yeah.
It was part 1, and I remember it was that 2-part living room where you got like the telly and the sofas in one part, and then you've got like the adult sofas and stuff in the other part. Which when it's dark, it's a void, and like anything could be lurking there.
Like behind the couch when you're a young kid and you're watching a horror film,
Yeah.
there's something could be behind the couch. There's a sequence in if you hear random sounds and sounds, it's our little demon dog Frida. She's vying for our attention,
Being a bit needy.
Okay, Frida, do you want to say something? Anyway, I put the mic to her face. She doesn't want to say anything. So yeah, like the darkness behind the couch, like the sequence in the very end of Halloween where it's like just shots of the house where Michael was at the end of the film, as though he could be behind the curtain or behind the couch.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it's what's lurking in the dark. That's what Hammer films are very good at doing.
When we were watching one of the Elm Street films, when the face comes out of the ceiling.
Oh yeah, the out of the wall, like he presses through.
Yeah,
That's the
that
first
was
one,
really
yeah.
good.
That's the very first
That
one.
was a good effect, actually.
Yeah, it's a practical effect, and in the remake they tried to do the same thing, and it's poorly executed because it's CG and it looked absolutely dreadful. And when you work on a budget, filmmakers really kind of push themselves to try and achieve things within constraints, and Halloween and a film like Nightmare on Elm Street are kind of extremely good examples of stretching the budget, stretching what you can do practically, and they achieve a lot.
Well, it's also stretching the imagination, isn't it? Like, you know, you've got a small budget. What can I do within that to make it look really good? Because it looks like a piece of like balloon or something. I don't know what it is, but you know, it's that feeling of the softness of going from hard wall to the softness. It was really, really well done.
Yeah, it must have been like a piece of latex or something to get that effect, because it actually looks like when you start to put a condom on, that's the effect.
We're back to the sex room.
Yeah,
aren't
that's what Kruger's full of it. So yeah, it's also about making the films look bigger. Like production value is a big thing. So if you've got more movement or effects, and you're doing that within constraints, and you're making it look like 10 times the budget, you know, practical effects are a way of doing that.
Going back to the inappropriate films that I watched with my aunt in her house, like things like Fatal Attraction. Is that a horror? We watched that. Obviously, I was sent behind the sofa for some of those scenes, but is that a horror?
Glenn Close and Douglas.
Yeah, because that was
Douglas with his Michael Douglas. This is a little tangent with Michael Douglas in that film. He has got the sleazy sex face thing going on from mid 80s to 90s, and he's perfected that. And Fatal Attraction,
Yeah.
with Glenn Close and
That's
the
right.
Bunny Boiler and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
that. I would say it's horror because she is a true monster of a human, and it's when you see her turn or go dark to a certain degree, and because he's
Is that a psychological horror? Is there
Yeah.
a genre?
I think it's like a subgenre or mix, like you were saying before.
Or is it a thriller? Do you know what I mean? Is it a thriller? Is it a crime? Like, I don't get it. What is it?
I think Fatal Attraction is a dark, sexually charged thriller, but I wouldn't quite say it's horror. There are horror elements like the rabbit, boiling the rabbit. Spoiler alert. It's not a spoiler alert when it's kind of late 80s, early 90s, I think. Yeah, it's almost borderline like kind of real horror. I would.
Do you
That's
see
a
what I
tricky
mean?
one, yeah.
You get my confusion with this genre. All-time favourite kind of crime film is Silence of the Lambs. Now, is that a horror?
Yeah, it's almost borderline like kind of real horror. I would.
Do you
That's
see
a
what I
tricky
mean?
one, yeah.
You get my confusion with this genre.
Well, he's well, it's not. It's more of crime. I think you're kind of a bigger fan of crime movies, and he's a true kind of cinematic monster, kind of like Frankenstein's monster in terms of how iconic he is, with Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins, and Brian Cox in Manhunter, and
but also Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, Buffalo. Put the lotion in the basket.
That was terrible.
That was a great impression. What are you talking about? What, you do
Put
your,
the lotion in the basket.
Is that your impression or your
Is
impression?
it really
of mine?
bad? No, that was my impression.
That was dreadful. That was dreadful. But no, I'd say the Buffalo Bill and Hannibal Lecter are monsters. But I'd say that's kind of crime thriller more than a kind of out horror.
So what we're saying is, real life horror people, horrific people that do horrific things, or made up horrific people or things like It, that clown.
So let's bring it back to what you think is horror or what you enjoy about horror.
Well, one of the horror films that I saw in the cinema was Blair Witch. Is that horror?
Yeah, well done. You get 5 points. Yay. 1999's finest.
But the only really terrifying bit was obviously that standing in the corner moment.
Spoiler alert again. 20.
Oh, come on.
I think Blair Witch is a magnificent achievement, and I'd be quite proud if I'd made that film. But it's dated very well, and I'd say that because it's shot on home movie. It's Super 8 or 16mm, and it's a great achievement. I think that when you watch it, it's still very enjoyable.
I prefer something like Paranormal Activity now.
And there's another one, another Paranormal Activity we haven't watched.
There's 5 that we've seen.
No, there's one more. It's not
There's
the ghost
6.
I mentioned, the 3D one, but we saw in the cinema. There's another that was on Paramount Plus, which is on-demand channel in the US, and it's exclusively on there, so we need to watch that.
Okay, we'll watch it. So Paranormal Activity is like my dad and my sister and I went to go and see it. My dad never goes to the cinema. I took him to see Titanic. I was 16 at the time. He cried. And then he took this old man that he kind of adopted called Mr. Turner. Wilfred Turner he was, God rest his soul. He bought our house from us basically, and then my dad just kind of did their shopping every week and just took care of them because my dad's the nicest person in the world. Took Mr. Turner then to go and see Titanic. So he doesn't really go to the cinema very often, that's what I'm saying. Saw Avatar, cried. He just likes going and seeing soppy films. Took him to see Paranormal Activity, pooed his pants.
What?
As in,
your dad actually pooed his pants?
He didn't actually poo his pants. But he jumped. It's that end scene where it... Spoiler alert.
Okay. Let's
you.
rewind this just a tiny bit, because I know, obviously, Pops, as I lovingly call him, he's built half this house. He's an amazing guy. So who was sitting next to who, and I want to know the details, the little minutia.
It was Perver in the middle, my sister. So Dad, Perver, and then me.
And what was he jumping at?
No, it was me. The three of us. It was... I don't think I've ever done this before, where you put your hands in front of your eyes because you're like, ooh. The end bit when something comes toward. I think maybe it was the motion of something coming toward where the body gets thrown towards the camera.
It's the husband that comes.
It is.
Yeah, from the landing towards the camera. Yeah, it's a great movie.
Tension. I like a bit of tension.
Yeah, Oren Peli, amazing director, and Jason Blum now produces them, and he's the kind of master producer of horror behind anything half decent. Jason, in terms of horror, Jason Blum's probably produced it. Yeah.
Do you know, I find it incredible that you can't remember what's to get from the shops, but you can remember who bloody held a camera for about 10 seconds in a film in 1973.
Yeah, that's a little bit of inside baseball of the Arora Blackburn family.
That is incredible. That's impressive. Well done.
Yeah, I don't get any extra points for it or paid more at work for knowing all these things, but these are the things that are retained in my large cranium, as Vicky calls it.
That's my large cranium.
Yeah, I have a
massive noggin.
A noggin, for people outside the UK, means head, and Vicky's got Beetlejuice's head, a tiny little head on a beautiful body.
Bit harsh, but so true.
Yeah, that is true.
Pinhead. What was the last scary film that we watched together that I didn't fall asleep in?
Before I tell you what I think it is, Vicky has the tendency to fall asleep about 20 to 25 minutes into every movie we watch. I kind of think Michael Chan is the same way.
There's a reason.
Okay.
I work a lot. I'm the early bird. I'm the first person in at work in the morning, and so I start early, and then I get very tired. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting knowing me sometimes as well, isn't it?
It is, but sometimes I do have a power nap, and then I'm like ready for more viewing when you are wanting to nod off.
Yeah, and when you've got a long day and you've got a warm, comfortable house and a comfortable broken couch, yeah, you can fall asleep very easily, especially when you've got a little dog as well.
I do, and in the winter time I'm a little bit of a Scrooge, so I don't like to put the heating on in the house, so I have a little heat pad. It's like the electronic version of a hot water bottle.
Yeah, it's quite something. It's almost like we're in our 70s already.
Well, I must say that it was a gift that your mum gave me for Christmas, so yes, I am now in my 70s.
Yeah, I love that cable from that heat pad as well, all over the chair and gets in the way, trips me up. I love that.
It's like the cables for charging the phones.
It's great having you on the podcast.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah. Yeah. Where's Michael? Find Frida, find Michael.
He'll be back for more puns next week, I'm sure. I actually enjoy his puns. I'm looking forward to it. When's he back?
Michael is going to be back next week with Jessica Chan, his wife, and they're going to have their own little seance, their own little podcast.
Ooh.
That's going to be episode 5 of the Hellbound podcast.
Do you know I've done a Ouija board before?
Have you? I've never done a Ouija board.
Would you?
That's what I should have bought today. I almost bought the Alien, the Ridley Scott movie board game, a tabletop game, because I wanted to make my amazing wife a little bit happier today, because it's been a difficult day and a long week for both of us. I've been shooting almost every day this week. Vicky's been super busy, getting up super early. I almost bought that, and I should have actually bought a Ouija board for us, because that'd be epic.
Yeah, that would have actually been quite good, because of where we live, I'm sure there's a lot of old codgers that have popped their clogs around here.
We actually live on an old army base, like Scooby-Doo. No, we live on
Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, there's always like an abandoned fun park or army base or something. But yeah, we live on an army base in northwest of England called the Dale Barracks, and that's in Chester.
If you'd like to send us gifts, please do.
Yeah. Any sponsors?
Most welcome.
Most welcome. And we'd like to get sponsored by Smirnoff Vodka. That'd be nice.
Ooh, yes. Or the Japanese vodka. What's that called?
Yamazaki.
No, that's the Japanese whiskey.
I'm not sure. Or a sake sponsor. That'd be great. I love that. We love sake. We inherited bottles of alcohol from my grandmother, my mother's mother. Wonderful person, and it was just really old. There was a bottle of Mount Gay, a bottle of alcohol called Mount Gay, which is a brilliant name for an alcohol. But we had a couple of others, like really fancy old gin bottles, and we thought,
well, it wasn't fancy, was it really?
No, it had like a corner shop sticker on the side, but from like 1972.
The price label.
Yeah, and it had 3 embossed lions on it, like the FIFA logo for football. And we used to call it Ancient Gin. It had this big white label on, kind of old school writing on.
And basically, your mum just said to us, your nines left loads of these that she'd never used to drink. Why didn't you just help yourself?
So we did help ourselves, and we used to have it in one of those ice blast cups that split a drink, 2 different flavours, and we'd have our own concoctions in either side of the drink. And we've polished the bottle off, and I don't know why. I think one of us was looking up the old bottles and seeing what they were, kind of what originally purchased for. And the bottle we drank, which is pretty much brand new, I think we actually cracked it open.
We did crack it open.
It was worth around £200, which is crazy. And
it wasn't even that nice.
It was old. It was like It was like liquefied books from a library. You know, it was like really old and tatty tasting. We thought, it's ancient gin, it'll be okay.
Ancient gin.
Yeah, it definitely didn't go down well, and we got some proper hangovers from that. And yeah, we were drinking that. I think when we were going through the series of Paranormal Activity films.
I do like the Paranormal Activities, to be fair. I do enjoy them.
If you're a fan of the Paranormal Activity films, you should check out the show The River. And it's a found footage TV show. It was only one season. And that's, I think it's produced by Owen Pelly and possibly Jason Blum, about a explorer in the Amazon a family with a TV crew trying to find their explorer type father, played by a great actor called Bruce Greenwood. And yes, check that out. If you like found footage or you want a TV show, check out The River.
Is it scary?
It is. Have you never seen it?
No.
It was one season. I was like so excited, and then it's cancelled. So it was gutting. But we should. Right. Okay. Michael and I are now going to be checking that out.
Oh, have I been left out of this?
Yeah, Michael, if you're hearing this, help me, save me. So speaking about going down the river, I think it's a nice little segue to wrap up this podcast. How have you found it, Vic?
Good. Yeah. How have you found it? More like.
A little bit awkward at times.
Oh, what?
Yeah, you're not awkward. I'm awkward, and I think it's because I've got too many layers on. I've got velour trousers on, long socks, slippers, your dressing gown, and
Alex,
t-shirt.
Stop giving away my goods to people.
No, I'm not giving away. I'm wearing.
Mine.
I'm wearing them.
Mine.
Okay, folks. See you soon, and you'll be joined by Michael and Jessica Chan next week.